And one of the controversial decisions was the decision to award a penalty against Joe Ward for Richarlison's eventual goal. What do you think about that sort of handball? Because in my opinion, he was in a natural position. You're in a position where Digne has received the ball, and he's trying to he's received the ball on his chest, and before the defender figures out the next move, of course you'll be in a position where you're actually sort of trying to move your, when you're defending players of that quality, you have to defend with both your arms, because against a defender as technical as Luka Dean, you've got to try and shield him as much as you can. And he was as far away, his hand was far away from where he's actually supposed to be. So in my opinion, I think that was actually controversial. In my opinion, that was more of a ball to hand than a handball. I don't think it was a handball, but these new rules where anything below the bicep is a handball it's something that I don't really understand. What do you make of that penalty? Because I know you are an Everton fan, and I don't want you to be biased. But what do you think?
Okay, I won't be biased, since like a few minutes before the actual penalty, Richarlison actually crossed a ball and it hit towards previously, but his hands were tied behind his back, basically. Well, he held them behind his back. But now for like Luka Digne, literally he headed it down, and Jolward, he's basically changing direction from where the ball was to where the ball is now going. So of course his hand has to be left back. And now when you look at the VAR, it's just a freeze frame more or less, which makes things look worse than they are.
True, because I was talking to one of my mates, and I was telling him, if you actually play football, because we do, you'll notice that replays are an unfair reflection of looking at things, because in a replay you have the time to look at something over and over again, and you can make your opinion. But in real time, it's very difficult to get out of some situations like that, because of course it wasn't intentional, but this new handball rule is favoring the attack. Of course, we want entertainment, but in my opinion, I think this rule needs to be amended or something. I know it's new, but I don't think it's going to stay for that long. And on that matter, I think we should just speak about all decisions right now, because I think I'm going to cut this out. We'll analyze the Spurs Newcastle game later, but this Dyer handball was also kind of similar. What do you think about that sort of incident?
I think the one for Eric Dyer, he's basically not looking at where Andy Carroll is, since he's facing where the ball is coming from. So he wouldn't expect Andy Carroll to head it back, which I think it's something which you'll see many attackers doing. They'll be looking for the opponent's arms.
And I actually read somewhere. I was actually looking at Jose Mourinho's press conference, and he was actually post-match interview, and he was actually saying that Steve Bruce was very happy because they were actually the better side, and I'll be honest, Jose's side were far superior. They should have won that game more comfortably, but they didn't take their chances. He was saying that by the fact they were 1-0 down at halftime, Bruce was very happy because he knew that in as much as he's Jose's friend and he has excellent knowledge of the game and all that, he was actually saying that Bruce looked happy because he was just a goal down, because he knows it would have been much worse. And then just before the game ends, Dyer, later in the game, Dyer is controversially handed a handball, which Callum Wilson goes on to score from the spot kick. Jose was so livid. He even said he'd rather not criticize the FA because he said he'd rather give his money to charity rather than to rather than to the FA, because it's a waste of time. Because anyway, even this guy called this West Brom manager, Slaven Bilic, also said that, if he criticizes the FA, he'll obviously be fined, because, they're always looking for those moments, because the FA is just like that.
And actually,
let's move back a little bit to
go
on.
On the penalties, actually, the top in Premier League history is 106 in 2009-10. We are already on 20.
We are already on 20 penalties for the season.
Yes, after 3 weeks.
I think this rule is actually trying to favor the attacker. Of course, because we want entertainment. It's football. In football, scoring a goal is the hardest thing to do in football, because I know you understand that, because you are a striker personally. Of course, we want entertainment, but at the same time, we don't want controversy. And I think this new handball rule is favoring controversy. What do you actually, moving back to the clock, because we actually didn't speak about it, what do you think about that moment in time when Maupe, his hand was sort of in a natural position, but he's trying to get the ball off of it, or away from he's actually trying to get his hand away from, where the ball is facing as soon as he can, but unfortunately it hit his arm. What do you think about that decision?
I think it's pretty much the same as theirs. Well, except for the fact for Neil, well, as a defender, it's very difficult, like to jump, you basically, most of the times, you have to raise your arms to propel yourself. So guys will...
Yes, of course.
Guys will end up with their arms up, then we'll continuously just see the attackers are trying to aim for the opponent's arms. Like, instead of actually trying to shoot fast, they'll just be aiming for the arms.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so they can win penalties and thus win points for their sides, I think that's a rule they're going to have to amend, don't you think? Huh?
Yeah. And I also think that I saw in the Serie A, like when I was watching a Juve game, like Juve were like... a goal down, let's say in the last 5 minutes, then you find Dybala on the wing. Like, he's not trying to cross.
Yes.
He's basically chipping onto someone's arm.
Yeah, so he can win a penalty. Yeah, I remember actually in a game against Stoke City in 2009. It's a game I'll actually never forget, because that's the day Aaron Ramsey's leg was broken by Ryan Shawcross. Niklas Bender had the ball and the game was 1-1. So Niklas Bender, he was with the ball and it's just on the edge of the box, and the defender, I think it was Delap, has already, sort of like tracked back inside. So he intentionally tried to, chip it towards his hand so he could win a penalty, because at that moment, once the ref sees that the ball has actually hit your arm, because that time we didn't have VAR, that's a penalty outright, and we eventually got a penalty and we scored that winning goal. So, I think it's become psychological. I think it's become mental, because, footballers are trying to get their teams in a position of advantage as much as they can, and you can't blame them, because even me personally, when I play, you always want your team to come out the better side in terms of winning, even though mliletwa sana, but you always want your side to come out with a win.